Here's McGrath for the win for the Volunteers. From 40. On the way, a knuckleball. He got it!
How is everybody doing here? I am Colin Bashnigel here today on this fine August 21st. Happy Monday. It is the final Monday prior to college football having been played, prior to being able to talk about the games that had just played. Now, if you guys are wondering about the in-season schedule, first off, there is no schedule when it comes down to TikTok. So check out my TikTok right here. You can see it. I'm pointing correctly, right? Bash's CFB show on TikTok. I posted a video with the high school football tour and all the high school football tour videos, though it will be recapped here. The videos of the actual experience are just on TikTok. I might end up posting them on YouTube Shorts. Got to figure that part out. But with that being said, the schedule going forward is going to essentially be this. You got to expect for starting the week, basically on Sunday morning or Saturday night, we will be recapping and talking about this week in college football. Now, week one will be different because we do have a game being played on Sunday, or two games on Sunday and one game on Monday, and including probably the biggest game of week one, LSU versus Florida State. And then you also have Clemson versus Duke. So those are going to be games to watch for, but that's going to happen after Saturday. Will we recap the first couple of days? Yes, but we're also going to accelerate into the against the spread stuff and all that stuff on Wednesdays every single week. Wednesdays every single week, I will be making the video and trying to post it by 9 o'clock every single Wednesday night. Now, of course, you might see me do something when it comes to Maction plays if I have anything that I am playing as far as Maction on those Tuesday or Wednesdays, or Sunbelt, of course, because they play on weeknights. So that's what it's going to look like. And then we're going to include the NFL. I am hoping to get that on Tuesday, but that might not work on my schedule to get that on Tuesday. So we might have to do that on Monday and go over Monday Night Football as we preview the upcoming week. And I'm going to try to basically cover all of that in one video, but we're just going to have to see if I have time on Wednesday, because I know Tuesday and Thursday is going to be a little bit more difficult. Friday, of course, I'm going to be at high school football games until late in the fall. So that's kind of self-explanatory right there. So there's a little bit of what the schedule is going to bring for Bash's CFB show. That's what I'm calling it right here. So make sure you guys like and subscribe if you like what you hear. All right, here we go. Michigan suspends Jim Harbaugh. 3 games. And now, why 3 games? Why not the 4 that they originally pushed? Is Jim Harbaugh getting his way? Let's break this down. So first off, immediate impact. Let's look at what they have on the schedule. East Carolina, Bowling Green, UNLV. They do not need Jim Harbaugh to win those games. Jim Harbaugh has been there most of fall camp, and I am still looking for details to see whether or not Jim Harbaugh can continue coaching through this time. This is breaking news as of today, and this is something that, hey, it caught my eye, but I don't really have a ton of info besides the fact that he suspended 3 games. What I do know is this. The NCAA rejected Jim Harbaugh and Michigan's appeal, essentially, of saying, hey, here's our plea. We're going to sit him 4 games, which, of course, would be those 3 games I listed off, plus, I believe, Rutgers. If I'm mistaken, correct me in the comments below. So why would the NCAA reject this? And then Michigan decides to suspend Harbaugh for 3 games independently of the NCAA. So they are not looking for the NCAA's approval. The immediate impact of this is not very extreme, but the long-term impact is interesting to me. I think Michigan's still trying to lessen the blow that they're going to get, because they say, hey, look, we did take action. So whatever action you're going to take against us is probably going to have to be less severe since we did take action. Very smart by Michigan's athletic department if they really want to keep this thing, tight, knit in kind of close to the vest when it comes to how much punishment this Michigan football program is going to go through. Now, for those of you that are out there saying, oh, lying to investigators, dead periods with COVID, and buying burgers and lying about that, why is this warranting this much trouble? And the answer I have for you is this. We do not know what the NCAA knows. We do not know what Michigan knows. And for all of you guys, by the way, that are saying, hey, a bunch of people openly, essentially, had those COVID or kind of dead period violations that Michigan is being rumored to had been accused of by the NCAA. Well, guess what? Hate to break it to you. This isn't the NCAA accusing. Trust me, Ohio State, my own team, goes through the same thing all the time. Michigan self-reported this stuff. All those teams that get away with it, all these programs that get away with it, they do not self-report this stuff. They dare the NCAA to come and look. Michigan self-reports. Harbaugh doesn't want to cooperate with investigators. The NCAA has every right to step in and punish Harbaugh in that instance. What that punishment is, do I think it's appropriate? What they're going to give him, which is 3 games this season, plus whatever they want to tack on the NCAA on top of this? I don't know, because I don't know what happened, which is why we shouldn't jump to conclusions. For all I know, the 3 games that I see right here on my screen, that's why I keep pointing this way, the 3 games are probably, or not probably, for all I know, the 3 games are too many games for him to be sitting out. I don't know anything about this, right? You don't know anything about this. You don't know what the NCAA knows. You don't know what Michigan had self-reported. You don't know what the NCAA found when they began their investigation. You don't know what they're still digging up as they continue their investigation to give punishment to Michigan in 2024. But there is a reason why they wanted to extend this to 2024 instead of coming in with action here in 2023. All right, we're going to move on to Jalen Milroe being the favorite for the Alabama quarterback job. Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. First off, what is happening here at this quarterback position? Let's break down what's happening here. You have Ty Simpson, maybe a little bit more of a statue, a pocket passer. He's clearly not the passer that he needs to be at this moment in time. That is obvious. He did not play a ton last year. He was behind Milroe last year because of the fact that he wasn't quite that developed passer, and he still is just not that developed passer. So they're going to go with an athlete at quarterback, and that's where it becomes between Jalen Milroe and Tyler Buchner. Now, where is Tyler Buchner in this whole thing? Is he going to be the backup to Milroe? I would probably say yes. What they're going to do is pare down the run game. What they're going to do is throw the ball 20 times, maybe even less, a game and pound that ball down everybody's throat. They trust in Jace McClellan. They trust in Roydell Williams. They trust in their young freshman, Justice Haynes, who I think is going to be a great player and maybe even running back 1 by season end. They trust this offensive line a lot more in run blocking than pass protection as well. And when you look at those factors, why wouldn't it make sense that you go with the freak athlete in Jalen Milroe who can run a read option here and there and be able to pull it and go the house like he did against Arkansas in backup duty? Jalen Milroe is a freak of nature athlete who still needs to figure out the throwing aspect of it, specifically the accuracy, but he is not an NFL quarterback. Nobody is claiming that to be the case. But I've been telling Alabama fans, I think Milroe is going to start. And not only do I think he's going to start, I think he's going to put up great numbers as the starter at Alabama because he is not going to be asked to do too much. He's going to throw towards the sideline when he throws the ball off of play action. It is not going to be the Alabama we have seen. It's not going to be Sark's Alabama whatsoever or Lane Kiffin's Alabama. It's going to be the polar opposite. It's going to be digging more into Nick Saban's roots, but even less than that, it's just going to be paring down the run game with using your quarterback as an added athlete based on what we had seen from Alabama spreading it out with Bryce Young being able to improvise, Tua Tagovailoa being able to be kind of elusive at times. And then, of course, you had that pocket passer in Mac Jones, but guess what? He had an NFL arm. he could throw the ball and make all the throws. And then you had like Jalen Hurts, what they started out with in 2016 when Jalen Hurts wasn't as polished of a passer. That's more what we're going to see with Milroe, but twofold. This is going to be more intense than what we saw with that. And I think Milroe is going to be the starter at Alabama. But guess what, guys? Tyler Buchner is a more talented quarterback than Jalen Milroe as far as arm talent goes, as far as ability to throw the ball. I'm thinking that this has to do with A, decision-making, and B, the athleticism for Milroe is just undeniable. And though Buchner is a good athlete, Milroe is an elite athlete. And I think that's what it comes down to. But at this point in time, and I've thought this for a little while, I definitely think it's between Milroe and Buchner. And I do think Milroe is going to be the starter at Alabama. All right, I took the high school football tour, and we went out to Springfield to see Springfield play against St. Ignatius, a powerhouse from Cleveland, against the Division I, which is the highest division in the state of Ohio, the Division I two-time runner-ups in the state, losing both years to St. Edwards. They have the number 1 overall player in Aaron Scott Jr. Now, a lot of questions in my mind were, what exactly are they going to be able to do? I know about this kid, Deshaun Martin, who's committed to Kent State. He's going to play wide receiver. His highlight tape is nice. But you're replacing Anthony Brown, who was really good as a junior, even better as a senior, and is probably going to crack the rotation at Kentucky as a true freshman when Kentucky has probably their deepest wide receiver room they have had under Stoops. So my question to you is this, Springfield, who do you have? Well, they had a couple of guys step up. Bebe Norman is a slot or a running back. That's what he's listed as. And he took a lot of carries as a running back, but he was also a receiving threat in this game. And a big one was also Duncan Bradley. And then a huge play happened for that Kent State commit, Deshaun Martin. And that was probably the nail in the coffin. I believe that's what got Springfield to that 27-point mark, was Deshaun Martin being able to make a play. And it was actually over the head of Sean Martin, the Toledo commit, who is likely going to play DB at Toledo. He's listed as an athlete, that is. But Aaron Scott Jr., where he factors in here, is he was not tested whatsoever by the St. Ignatius offense, and you're going to see that in the state of Ohio a ton. I am curious because this next game I'm going to go to, I know I said last week I'm not going to announce it, but I decided I'm going to announce it. I'm going to go see Glenville in the number 2 corner in the state of Ohio, which is Bryce West, and 1-2, try to make each other better, try to encourage each other by going to Ohio State, Bryce West, and Cleveland Glenville. Of course, also going to see Demarion Witten and a couple of other players that are going to play some college football in the Division I level. They have an interior offensive lineman who's committed to Louisville, a safety who's committed to Army, and another kid to keep an eye on as well. So I'm going to be very interested. There's a edge rusher who's favored to go to West Virginia, and then another kid that I stumbled across that's probably a MAC prospect for maybe 2025. I can't remember. I haven't finished my research with that game, but we're going to see that Glenville team go up against Olentangy Liberty, which is going to be a fun game. This was a good game last year, a very tight one, defensive battle for sure. And I'm curious to see how this is going to go on Friday night. But I'm also curious to see if Olentangy Liberty is going to try to avoid Bryce West the way that St. Ignatius, a powerhouse from Cleveland, mind you, albeit they've been down the last couple of years, but the way that St. Ignatius purposely tried to avoid Aaron Scott Jr. I am curious to see if Springfield can get to that state championship and finally get over that hump. That is what I'm going to be watching for this season in Ohio high school football. All right, now here's the national recruiting update I have for you. There's a little bit of drama still with Williams Nwaneri. Nwaneri is basically, he's committed to Missouri, right? But he is not closing his mind to the idea of going to Oklahoma. An Oklahoma fan that told me, well, it's not that far from home, so home is not a factor. Dude, that was probably the university, the team he grew up rooting for. And if I had to guess, he is going to end up a Missouri Tiger at the end of the day. A lot of Oklahoma fans are using the blanket accusation that, oh, they just threw a crap ton of money. Hey, Oklahoma fans, this was probably your number one prospect on your board, if not two. And we'll talk about your number one prospect if he is two, the other prospect that's in that argument. On your board, this was probably the best prospect you had. Do you really think that Missouri is going to be able to have the boosters and the alumni support to buy out Williams-Nwaneri under your feet as Oklahoma? The drama is this. He wants to stay home. He wants to play for Missouri, but he also wants to play for Brent Venables. And his heartstrings are pulling him towards Missouri. And he could easily either very much succeed at Missouri and go to the league, succeed at Missouri and decide to transfer to Oklahoma, or not play year one at Missouri and transfer to Oklahoma anyway. That's the era we live in. But to act like Missouri outbid you for the number 3 overall player in America is absolutely absurd. We will get back to Oklahoma in a minute, but real quick, I want to talk about a couple of commitment announcements. Now, no notable commitments since the last show that I recall. I do remember a couple of 4-star players that I posted in the chat, but I'm not going to run down that list right now because of the fact that, A, it was 2. You can look it up by yourself, and B, this happened quite a few days ago. This hadn't really been recent. I think that was either Thursday or Friday. But with that being said, we are just going to talk about the big-time commitments that are coming up. We're going to start with Jordan Ross. He's a 5-star kid, and he is down to Tennessee and Texas. Now, I do think that this is an interesting recruitment because we really don't know where he's going to go, but one thing's for certain, if Jordan Ross commits to Tennessee, that is massive for that defense and what they're trying to build. I kind of lean towards Texas personally, but I truly do not have a good read on this. I'm going to pick Texas, but he is committing in just a couple of days, and that'll be – or actually, I think he's committing tonight. Jordan Ross, yeah, he's committed tonight at 8 o'clock, so make sure you tune in for that. That should be interesting. Again, I'm pretty sure it's down to just Texas and Tennessee, and I'll be interested to see where he commits tonight. That'll be news I'll be breaking in the chat, and maybe a discussion for us to have in next week's show, or at the very least on Wednesday, but probably not because Wednesday is going to be the full season preview. And then I'm going to try to do the bottom line ticker. You see that? I'm going to also try to do the week 0 preview the same day. That shouldn't take that long because of the fact that the slate is so small. All right, now we have Edric Houston. He's announcing tomorrow on where he's going to go. And there's some other announcements, and we're starting to see this start to grow a little bit, the announcements and the 5-star kids really just wanting to find a home at the beginning of their senior season so they can just enjoy it and not worry about the recruiting aspect of it. Edric Houston has been crystal balled to Ohio State for a very long time. That hasn't really changed. However, I do think that there is a little bit of mystery here. Now, is it a factor that Dylan Raiola is committed to Georgia and he is his team's quarterback? Absolutely not. This kid transferred for like the 5th time in his high school career to Buford in Georgia to try to be closer to Georgia. There's not really that connection between Edric Houston and Dylan Raiola outside of the fact that they've been playing football together for just a couple of months, right? That's, at the end of the day, the connection that is there. Of course, a couple weeks ago, you had KJ Bolden commit to Florida State. If that Buford connection really mattered, KJ Bolden would be a Bulldog, not a Florida State Seminole. And at the end of the day, what you're going to see here is Edric Houston probably commit to Ohio State, but 100% in play is Bama, Clemson, USC, and Georgia as well. The other guys, any of those other guys, if Ohio State is not the destination for Edric Houston, any of them have a shot, probably about an equal shot, but head over heels, the favorite in this recruitment is definitely Ohio State, and that would be their second 5-star defensive lineman to add on to Justin Scott from the Chicago area in this class for Ohio State. And then finally, we talk about defensive line. We're going defensive line heavy. We talked about an edge rusher and then a defensive lineman. Now we're going to talk about another interior guy, David Stone. So Oklahoma fans, you swung and missed on Williams-Nwaneri. This is really defensive line heavy. Holy cow. Williams-Nwaneri, you swung and missed on him just last week. Missouri was able to steal him. You cannot lose David Stone from IMG Academy to Michigan State. I know that David Stone, I'm pretty sure, is from the state of Michigan, but at the end of the day, he went to IMG for more exposure, and at the end of the day, he went to IMG for exposure to go to a program like Oklahoma, not stay at home and go to a program like Michigan State. Now, maybe he's missing home and wanting to go back, and maybe that's a factor, but at the end of the day, I think this is Oklahoma's recruitment to lose, and if they lose this, watch out. Social media, they're going to have a firestorm with Oklahoma, Brent Venables, and this recruiting staff because of back-to-back misses like that with Williams-Nwaneri to Missouri and David Stone to Michigan State. Like, if you lose 2 5-star players to Missouri and Michigan State respectively, and you're Oklahoma, you're going to hear about it. I hate to break it to you. I don't think that's going to happen. I think David Stone is a Sooner. Ohio State quarterback update. I just want to give you a quick update real quick because I did say that this week, Devin Brown could be named the starter. And I thought he would be today when Ryan Day had his press conference moved up. However, what did he announce? Well, the battle's still going on. Oh, we might play both quarterbacks because he was asked, by the way, about, would you play both quarterbacks? And he's like, yeah, maybe. No, he's saying maybe as in, hey, it's the third quarter and Ohio State's up 42-7 against Indiana. Kyle, you can go. Because that's at the end of the day what's happening right now. I believe full-heartedly that Devin Brown will be the starter. I believe he's taking first-team reps. They're talking about the 2 practice fields and how they can get reps at the same time. And I'm like, yeah, Kyle McCord is running with the 2s. That's what's going on. They're not flipping back and forth as much as they were. Devin Brown's running with the 1s. Kyle McCord's running with the 2s. Devin Brown lit up the scrimmage yet again. Second scrimmage he lit up. I would be shocked at this point if Devin Brown's not the starter. I never said that I would be shocked if Kyle McCord was the start or wasn't the starter because I've always kind of thought that we were going in this direction with Ohio State in Devin Brown's direction. Not because Kyle McCord's bad. He's a former 5-star that they handpicked over J.J. McCarthy. But at the end of the day, what they thought they wanted back then is different than what they want now and is different than what they want for this team. They want the elite athlete. They want the guy who's going to put his shoulder down and absolutely give dog. And if there's no proof that is better than Lincoln Kineholes being the pick for Ryan Day in this past class, then I don't know what is. I mean, Lincoln Kineholes is a better athlete than Devin Brown. As good of an athlete as Devin Brown is. And though Lincoln Kineholes is definitely not even close to ready, and from what I've heard, he's struggling when it comes to the speed of the game because he's not used to the speed of the game at Ohio State. Also, he is not exactly making the right reads at all. He's still making like wild plays. And it's crazy because you could see him play just and be a one and done, Lincoln Kineholes, and you're going to have a battle like this in a couple of years, yet again, between Aaron Nolan and Lincoln Kineholes, that I think is going to favor the athlete. And I think it would favor the older guy in that situation. But Kyle McCord, as the starter, I've always kind of raised my eyebrow ever since Devin Brown committed, and I looked at his film, I looked at his tape, I looked at his background, and I'm like, hold on now. We cannot just assume that Kyle McCord is the heir apparent. And then by season's end last year, I'm like, hold on now. I think Devin Brown might just be the starter. And right now, in August, hold on now. I think Devin Brown's the starter. And I'm pretty sure I have it on decent authority that Devin Brown is the starter. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I tell people that all the time. I could be wrong, been wrong before. I'm not trying to embarrass myself. I do think Kyle McCord is a really good player. I think too many people kind of hate on Kyle McCord for his missteps in the Akron game as a true freshman and then the spring game in which you can look back just a couple years ago where Justin Fields went like 4 for 13 or whatever in the spring game. That crap does not matter to me. I think Kyle McCord has a great arm. I think he's probably got really good pocket presence, and I certainly know that he's got great leadership skills. And if he never starts a day at Ohio State, I'll be rooting for him, and I think he's going to make it to the NFL. But is he an NFL first-round draft pick? And is he able to overcome the deficiencies that Ohio State may just have at tackle? I mean, there's a serious battle right now between Josh Fryer, and nobody wants to talk about this, and true freshman Luke Montgomery at the right tackle spot. And the left tackle is up for grabs. Now, guys, I'm going to tell you this, Buckeye fans, real quick. If Josh Fryer was so good and he was such a solid part and the only guy that couldn't be moved at the tackle spot, why isn't he played left side? Why is he just anchored on that right side and they're trying to find somebody? The answer is there's a battle for anybody to be a top 2 tackle on that team. And it's going to be Josh Simmons. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's Josh Fryer as well, but Josh Simmons and Luke Montgomery might just be the starting 2 tackles. I'm going to say by the Michigan game. I'll just say by the Michigan game, barring injury, of course. All right, final thing I want to talk about is real quick. I want to talk about the All-American team. I'm just going to read this off very quick, try to keep up here. So first off, I do want to name the quarterback for the first team. Quarterback is Caleb Williams. The 2 running backs are Blake Corum and Quinshon Judkins. I'll get to Corum in a minute. The 2 tackles are Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu from Notre Dame and Penn State, respectively. The 2 guards are Kansas State's Cooper Beebe and Zach Zinter from Michigan. The center is Cedric Van Pran from Georgia. The tight end is Brock Bowers from Georgia. And then 2 wide receivers from Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. make it, while Rome Odunze makes it for Washington. And the all-purpose player is Travis Hunter, the sophomore from Colorado, and Joshua Carty, the senior kicker from Stanford, is your kicker. On the defensive side for the first team is Jared Verse, the senior from Florida State. Braylon Trice from Washington is also back as the edge rusher. Interior lineman, you have Jazon Newton coming back for Illinois, one of the best interiors, if not the best interiors in the college game today. Dante Corleone is the pick for Cincinnati, the junior there. Harold Perkins, Jason Dumas Johnson. It's not Jason. It's Jamon. Why am I reading Jason here? Okay, CBS, do better. Jamon Dumas Johnson, Harold Perkins, and then Tommy Eichenberg are your linebackers. Then you have cornerbacks Kool-Aid McKinstry and Kalen King, while the safeties are Cam Kinchins and Malachi Starks. So Cam Kinchins, of course, from Miami, if you did not know. Honestly, if you're a huge college football fan, you really should know all these guys. I'll tell you who some of these guys are in case they are under the radar, like where they're from. But most of these guys that I'm naming, you should know. Defensive back also added on is Cooper DeJean, not surprised there, from Iowa, and Torrey Taylor from Iowa, the punter, which, I mean, man, he's a great punter. All right, second team. We're just going to run through this before we get to kind of breaking this down in a quick manner. Drake May is the quarterback, the North Carolina quarterback right there. Raheem Sanders and Braylon Allen are the 2 running backs, which is interesting that they picked Raheem Sanders and not a guy like Travion Henderson or Nick Singleton. Or I think they just didn't want to go super Big Ten heavy right here, honestly. And we'll talk about Donovan Edwards in a second. At tackle, J.C. Latham from Alabama and Kelvin Banks from Texas. That's interesting because, and I'm reacting to this, I feel like there's a nice line between J.C. Latham and Kelvin Banks. I think Kelvin Banks is definitely a better player, but I could be wrong. Guards, Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. Man, I'm telling you, that kid is really good. And then Christian Mahogany from Boston College, the senior. And then the center, Zach Frazier. I got ripped, by the way, for putting Zach Frazier in the top 2. Also, interesting pick here. Tight end is Oronde Gadsden. I like Gadsden a lot. I don't know about second team All-America when it comes to the tight end spot, but the junior from Syracuse, Oronde Gadsden, makes an appearance. Wide receivers, you have Xavier Worthy from Texas, Malik Neighbors from LSU, and how about this one? Jacob Cowing in over his former teammate Dorian Singer from Arizona. I kind of like that, the former UTEP player, which, by the way, UTEP playing week 0. That's interesting. All-purpose player, we have Will Shipley from Clemson, and then the kicker is John Hoyland from Wyoming. I don't want to complain too much about this. I just want to mention one thing. Blake Corum here instead of Donovan Edwards. We're kidding ourselves if we are saying that Donovan Edwards is not going to be the starter at the University of Michigan, or at the very least, the better of the two at the University of Michigan. I do believe that he is a better running back than Blake Corum. He can catch out of the backfield a lot better. And by the way, I'm not saying this. I think Blake Corum might just be the second best running back in America. Similar to how everybody's ranking number 1 and number 2, Marv and Mecca, as far as wide receivers. I think you can make the argument that number 1 and number 2 when it comes to running backs is number 1, Donovan Edwards, number 2, Blake Corum. I have Donovan Edwards number 1, and then like Nick Singleton, Quinshon Judkins, and then there's like Blake Corum or maybe Braylon. I would put Braylon Allen ahead of him too. I think that we are kidding ourselves, though, acting like Donovan Edwards isn't a better player. He's more of a home run hitter. He's not scared of contact. The in-between the tackles that Blake Corum gives you and the decisiveness, that is something that, Edwards is not missing. But that explosive ability and that utilization out of the backfield, he's just so significantly better than Blake Corum at that stuff because he's elite at that stuff. While Blake Corum is just very good, which is not a problem. Again, I have him listed as like the 5th or 6th best running back in America. I'm not trying to slight Blake Corum. I just think that highly of Donovan Edwards. That's my only thought on the All-American team rundown. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you comment down below, and most importantly, like and subscribe, and check out the playlist right here. I kind of forgot to add that in. Season prediction playlist is also back on the channel, but I'm putting these college football shows on a playlist. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Colin Bashnigel. We'll see you guys next time. You guys have a good one. Appreciate you.